Hello, everyone. Professor Barry here. Another installment, Social 250, moving into advertising and next week branding. Advertising and understanding advertising, the history of advertising, the techniques of advertising, its impact on us as consumers. Super fascinating because it's the world that we live in, or it has an important part of the world that we live in. And I think we all have thoughts and ideas about it. So let's kind of unpack it. Just give you an example before we get started, some things that we're going to be like investigating, looking at. Going back to like the 1920s, there was an advertisement for a product, Listerine, a mouthwash. And this company promoted this idea that if you have a medical condition called halitosis, so they're socially constructing this idea that bad breath meant a medical condition, which meant social stigma. The other advertisements were if you have bad breath, you're going to be losing out on friends are going to make fun of you, people are going to make fun of you. So use our mouthwash. You have great smelling breath. Then this would be the resolution, right? So they're creating a demand by creating dissatisfaction in people. So you only can sell a product if you create some dissatisfaction that people have. I mean, people manufacturing needs is sort of what we can think about. There was one advertisement, the case of poor Edna, always a always a bridesmaid, but never a bride because she had this condition. So it's like playing on people's fears and actually constructing fears to sell a particular product. And what we're going to do at this kind of like, I don't know, this lecture, the point is to provide a little bit of background context to help you better get into the two chapters from a book called The Father of Spin. It's a story about Edward Bernays, the father of public relations, and how he got into advertising and marketing. And I think you'll find it really interesting. Uh, and then a podcast on This Is Your Brain on Ads, which looks at sort of just this conversation or looking into advertisements and their influence. And then we'll talk about the assignment here at the end, like applying some of this information from the lecture to a product that you look at and look at advertisements for it over a course of time. So let's start off and define like, okay, this idea of materialism. Materialism is economic structure. So before we got to capitalism, so let's imagine like colonial America or an indigenous community or agrarian society. Like this is pre-capital, right? So there is no like advertising and marketing. You'd have like even in today, if you go to a marketplace that in a place that doesn't have like these modern capitalist systems, people are buying and selling goods for sure, but you don't have this mass production at the same level. And so the role of marketing and advertising emerges with the development of industrial capitalism. And then it has different iterations depending on the changing economic structure. So if we look, we're going to talk about early and late capitalism. One of the things you're going to focus on for the assignment is looking at a product and looking at its advertisements over a course of time. And hopefully the connection you can make is that early advertisements for a particular product, let's say a razor, were very minimal text or very minimal image, a lot of text about the product. And then fast forward to today, oftentimes you get something different. So what's going on is there's some changing economic structure. Early capitalism, let's say 1700s, 1800s, all the way until the early 1900s. Like this is like a form of capitalism. And then where we're at today, because of new technologies, a global marketplace, transnational corporations. We have a different economic structure than existed 100, 150 years ago. So when we're looking at things, I think it's important when looking at advertisements is thinking about, well, how did the economic structure change, that material structure, and what's its influence been on advertisements or the mass media or whatever it is we want to think about. So if you go from advertisements from the print media, let's say early 1900s, let's look at or the news press in the early 1900s and advertisements there, to radio in the 1920s, TV in the 1950s, internet, later on 1990s, 2000s. We just get changes with that economic structure, and those technologies are opening up different spaces for advertising and marketing. I think this quote from Karl Marx, I think is a really kind of an important one to kind of establish the role that advertisements might play. So I'll kind of read through it and provide some commentary as we go along. In the social production of their existence, people inevitably enter relations which are independent of their will, namely relations of production. By this, he means that people enter into space based on their role as either a worker, an owner, a manager, a executive. Like what is their relationship to the production, to the system of production? In Marx's time, when he's writing in the 1800s, early 1900s, that, he identified different classes, so to speak. One of them would be the working class, and then the ruling class is how he divided it. I mean, our system is much more complicated today, where there's more levels or more layers or more differentiation in our economic structure. But your role or the position you occupy in that economic structure is your relation of production. And that relation of production is influenced by the stage of development of that economic system. So we have a different economic system today. It's still capitalism, but it's organized in a different way than it was 150 years ago. The totality of these relations of production constitute its economic structure. So all the, workers, management, all those sort of different things that are going on, all that stuff influences or constitute our economic structure. And out of that economic structure comes our legal system, our political system, and then the superstructure, the ideology factory, the belief system is coming out of that economic structure. So advertisements come out of that economic structure. Advertisements aren't independent of, it's that advertisements and consumption are a reflection of that economic structure itself. And that's the superstructure, is the ideology factory, the belief factories. So mass media, Hollywood, advertisements, the news media, these are part of the superstructure. If we go back to pre-industrialization, that superstructure is pretty small and it was really local. Where we're at today, that superstructure, it's transnational. The advanced technologies to reach us are significant in many, many ways. And this influences our consciousness, our awareness, the way that we think, the way that we know, our actions, our behavior, our consumption. The mode of production conditions the life, our social life, our political life. So that mode of production influences to a significant degree our day-to-day life, our intellectual life, our political life, our social self. And then this is kind of a famous quote of Marx, that it's not the consciousness of people that determine our existence. It's not that we develop this sort of sense of our existence and our consciousness independent of all these forces, but rather it's our existence that determines consciousness. It's the economic structure that's influencing our consciousness. So think about it. Advertising, what it would have been like to live in a world pre-advertising and how that might influence consciousness in a different way. So we can look at early and late capitalism. Just before we even get to early capitalism, before a capitalist system, agrarian society, colonial America, Benjamin Franklin made a statement, or a lot of great quotes from old Benji Franklin. A penny saved is a penny earned. This idea of being thrifty was something to be valued. Well, enter into capitalism, we're now developing a wage-based economy. We're starting to move into consumption. By late capitalism, we are full on into a mass consumption mode. So different material structures, different economic conditions. Early capitalism, let's just say 1800s, early 1900s, things are in the 1800s, much more local, much more regional in terms of products being produced versus global and transnational corporations, TNCs. Garments, clothing came locally, came regionally. And then you see the expansion today. Most people, if you look at the clothing and where it comes from, it's going to come from Bangladesh, India, China, different places around the world, right? We're in a different economic system. And then the relations of production to labor, that in a pre-industrial society, the consumer and the producer were pretty closely connected. If you were a leather maker and making leather goods, making belts, making clothing, you were more closely connected to the consumer. And now, and also you're involved as a producer, as a leather maker, you're selecting the labor, working, or selecting the leather, working the leather, every part of making that belt you were involved in. Start moving into different systems, more technology, more efficiencies, productivity, production systems. We get further alienated in terms of the work we do. Now, instead of working on the full belt, Somebody is like sitting in front of a machine, and they're working in front of a machine. They're working on one part of assembly line process that's creating alienation in terms of labor and a distance between the producer and the consumer. By the 1800s, because of economic or technological advancements in production system, there becomes a concern about overproduction. And the response is get people to consume. So beginning of mass commodification and trying to encourage people to be consumers is a response to overproduction. Like industry is producing more than what people actually need. So how do we get rid of all this stuff? We got to convince people that they need to buy. And then moving to late capitalism, somewhere like say 1970s, we're in a different economic structure, transnational corporations, new technology. The organization of capital is different, shareholders, stockholders. I mean, it's a different system. And we move into advertising and marketing takes on a different focus and a different level of power in this particular kind of environment. A couple quotes from an author named Stuart Owen talking about a book, in a book called Captains of Consciousness. A couple things stand out here to me that we can kind of talk about this difference between early and late capitalism. First, the development of a belief or an ideology of consumption responded to both the issue of social control, trying to regulate people's behavior, and the need for distributing goods. So an ideology of consumption, like it's good to buy, this is like something that we've been encouraged to do, becomes part of our culture. It's a way of regulating human behavior and also a way to fulfill the needs of industry with all the goods they're producing. A broader offensive against the notions of thrift. So people were thrifty at a certain time period. They weren't spending money out like buying commodities. Get mass production. Now the priorities demand that the worker spends their money and leisure time on the consumer market. We get encouraged to be consumers at some point in time. While agreeing that human nature is more difficult to control than material culture, Admen spoke in specific terms of human instincts. So you get scientists and people working on like, what are these instincts? How can you induce people to buy? And so this like early advertisements were like figuring out like, okay, so let's use the scientific model and evidence and let's figure out what are those instincts? What can we tap into people's basic fundamental fears and needs, like Maslow's hierarchy of needs, a sense of belonging and connection. Like what can we tap into to encourage people to buy? Like that goes back a long way in advertising. Advertising helps keep the masses dissatisfied with their mode of life, right? We're only buying things if we're dissatisfied with the way our nails look, the way our bodies look, the way that our breath smells. There's something's got to go on to create that kind of need. And satisfied customers are not profitable. You got to create discontented ones. We already talked about alienation a little bit, but just bring it up here again in this book called Art of Loving by Erich Fromm, that people become alienated from themselves, from his fellow men or fellow people, from others, and from nature. So we get more and more with industrial capitalism, and then where we're at today with late capitalism, everything becomes more and more commodified and brought into the marketplace as if the marketplace were the space that's much more sacred, and we get more and more alienated from everyday life and people. Another concept that would come up in the assignment is this idea of conspicuous consumption and taste cultures. So early industrialization, production of goods starts to lead to this idea that people can make class distinction based on what they're consuming. We have more and more production, markets are expanding, shopping stores start to develop, more and more products of different class, are tailored towards two different classes. And now people are consuming to distinguish themselves more and more based on class position. So this idea of Veblen talks about conspicuous consumption, that he thought it was this odious kind of thing that people are consuming, not just to take care of a human, like a basic need, like a shoe to cover your foot, but rather now shoes become this thing to make class distinction. That is this conspicuous consumption. People are purchasing for these reasons that are about distinguishing themselves from those below them. If you could recall Pierre Bourdieu, and taste in our taste cultures, that this will get us into thinking about what we consume are markers of our status and position. why buy a particular one product versus another? Sometimes it's about our identities, sometimes about class position, whether it's the foods that we eat, the cars that we drive, the houses that we own, or places that we live, the clothing, vacations, on and on and on. That's some about consumption. It's about what we're used to. It's our social environment. It's what we're exposed to. It's what's normal for us. There's also a little bit of what Veblen would call class distinction, or Bourdieu would call that we get involved in class cultures, and then we start to see that certain products we associate with good, and certain products not so good, or whatever it might be. We attach a lot of meaning. So what I want you to look at for this week, you're going to look at the two chapters in the book. You're going to read those, and then the podcast on This Is Your Ad on Drugs. And then you're going to select for the assignment, select a particular product and look at the advertisement of that product over a course of time. So I just provide, and I want you to kind of look at maybe over an 80, 100-year time span, just so you can see a lot of the difference over time. And think about like that material structure thing. Think about what's being promoted. Is it just the product, or what else is being promoted in these advertisements? Does this reflect early capitalism versus late capitalism? If so, how does this reflect that? In some ways, just take your best guess. I mean, I'm all, there's the last part of the assignment is defining these terms. So start with the definition, and then make the application. Like, what do you see? What do you notice? And feel free to stumble in that space a little bit. I just pulled some different ads here. This is 1864, an advertisement for an exterminator company. And look at all the text, right? There's not a lot in terms of the image itself. Of course, it's black and white. We're going to go to like the 1940s, 1950s. We're starting to get into something a little bit different. Still a lot of text. Now we're going to have gender representation, race representation, probably class representation. I'm kind of curious. I can't make this bigger, but what are the promises? What are the ideas? What else is being sold? Look at all the text here, the written text. This is an advertisement for Camel cigarettes, two advertisements. I mean, look at representations of gender and sort of relationship, social norms around relations. Yeah, just like super interesting just to sort of think about like the advertisements in the past versus today tells a story about what's going on within culture and society. Also, advertisements gives us insight into what's behind these representations and how they reflect the ideas of what's going on at that particular moment in time. I won't go into this longer story of why doctors were recommending. Part of it was that the scientific community is starting to identify the health consequences of tobacco smoking on one's health, and the tobacco companies get organized. This is like Bernays and the father of spin, and start to spin it and start to say, hey, let's get doctors on board. Let's get them, involved and create these ad campaigns and get doctors to identify that they say this product is actually better for throat scratch and these other conditions. So a very concerted effort by the tobacco industry to counter rising concerns about tobacco smoking. Here's the more recent one. Like now it's like, okay, it's image, big text, not a lot of words, and specifically targeted towards women. The best ones are thin and rich. Like that's a lot. It's pretty powerful, right? This idea of gender norms and expectations are now brought into the advertisement, being thin, being rich. It's class status in terms of the brand of cigarettes you smoke. Miller High Life, attention, newlywed gal, this is a 1990s advertisement, kind of a response to microbrews emerging. I don't know, there's some gender stuff to unpack here, some class stuff to unpack. Using women's liberation as a way to promote a product. Early text, early 1900s, shredded wheat. So now getting on a campaign and saying you're supportive of a campaign, and being able to promote a product to try to get people to consume. Moving into the 1980s, Playtex collection, the new women's movement, women's liberation, but it's about consumption. So it's this odd kind of thing. Advertisements around alcohol is super interesting. We get masculinity stuff going on here in this space. You get representation about sexuality. There's virtually no written text anymore, right? Something that's different in that space. Okay, so that's the layout, the format. There could be a lot we could go into, but that kind of gives us a good touchdown for a while, get us some things to start thinking about advertisements. Hopefully find the article and the podcast informative, interesting, and engaging. I'm super looking forward to the product that you choose and looking at advertisements over a course of time. All right, have a great day and enjoy the rest of your week.